Cape Coast Castle. Here is Cape Coast Castle. In this video, I'm going to show you where our ancestors suffered most, beaten and maltreated most. It's very sad. Here is the entrance of Cape Coast Castle. Follow me. Alright. So we are here. I want to know the history of Cape Coast Castle.
Okay. Get everything, the history. I'll start by first giving you the history of how the castle was built, what it was used for, and then we'll also see the dungeons where they kept the Africans. We'll see the punishment cells where the Africans who fought for their freedom were punished. We will also be walking out of what we call the door of no return.
Door of no return?
Yes, the exit to the slave ships. We will return, we'll see the governor's place. We'll also see the slave market, the Palava Hall, before we end our wrap. Okay. So let me start with the Swedish. The Swedish, they were the first Europeans to have built on this land. The Swedish were here around 1654.
1654?
Yes. And they built a fort when they came. They were using this fort as a transit point. They were taking gold and Africans away. But the fort and the land changed hands. The Danes captured the fort from the Swedish around 1658. And then 3 years later, in 1661, the Dutch also came around. They also drove the Danes away and occupied the same building, the fort. The Dutch were in control of the fort for 4 years. Around 1665, the British attacked the Dutch, defeated them. And the British were the ones who developed the castle. So everything you see built by the British.
I've been to Elmina Castle, and a tall lady over there said,
then they sold this castle to the British in 1872.
Castle to the British. But here you say the British fought the Dutch. So what is it?
Oh, okay. You're talking about the Dutch sold the Elmina to the British. Okay. As at the time the British built this castle, the Dutch were the ones in charge of the Elmina.
Yeah. And
the Dutch stayed in control of the Elmina Castle until the 1870s. By that time, they had stopped the slave trade.
Right.
The British had started what became known as the Gold Coast Colony. So the Dutch were leaving because the slave trade had stopped and all that. So they sold the Elmina to the British. So it was Elmina that was sold, and that was after the slave trade. But for the British getting the fort here, the slave trade was going on. So they had to fight the Dutch to get a building. Yeah. So by the time the British bought the Elmina castle, the Dutch had left. All the other European countries had left, leaving only the British on our shores. So the British took control. In fact, they bought all the other castles and forts belonging to other European countries. For instance, we have the Osu Castle in Accra.
Yeah.
That was built by the Danes, but the British also bought it from the Danes in the 1870s. So it wasn't only the Elmina they bought, but other structures that belonged to other Europeans. They bought it.
Okay. If I may ask, what is the difference between Elmina Castle and Cape Coast Castle?
Cape Coast. Okay. Elmina, it also started as a trading fort. It was the Portuguese. They were the first to build at Elmina. They started building it around 1482.
1482?
Yes. So it was a trading fort. They were taking gold away, but then they started taking Africans. So the first difference is Elmina was built by the Portuguese. This is British.
This is British.
Yes. And Elmina also, some of the dungeons were originally like storerooms. They were keeping food. But then they started keeping humans. But for this slave castle, the dungeons were designed
For slave.
to keep human beings. So these two are the main difference. Another thing is Elmina is older. Elmina is over 500 years old. This is 357.
257 years.
Yes. So Elmina is much older.
So according to your explanation, it means that the Dutch came here purposely because of the slave trade.
Yeah, the Dutch. In fact, the only Europeans who came to our shores, not for the slave trade, were the Portuguese. They were the first.
Yeah.
And they came for the gold. So the gold is what made them stay. But then they started taking
Taking
Africa.
Africans.
So the other Europeans who came after the Portuguese, when they came, the slave trade had already started. So they were just into that business. So apart from the Portuguese who came initially for the gold, the other Europeans, the slave trade was one main reason why they were nationals.
I learned before the British came to Africa, came to occupy the castle, the slave trade was abolished.
Oh, no. The British, for this slave castle, they used it to take Africans for about 150 years. So the dungeons were created to keep Africans. So they used it to take Africans for well over 100 years before they stopped. And when they stopped taking Africans, they did not leave. They stayed because of the gold and the other natural resources. So that is where these Europeans started creating colonies. That way they can be in direct control. So for the British, they had Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone. The French had Senegal and all that. The Germans had a part of Togo and also part of I think Cameroon. So they just, that was after the slave trade. They divided West Africa among themselves because of the resources. So the British were deeply involved in the slave trade. And after the slave trade also, they focused on our gold and other natural resources.
It's very sad to hear stories like this. Okay, let's move on.
All right. Okay, so for this very slave castle, the Africans taken through by the British, many of them, they were captured within Ghana. Mind, in those days, there was nothing like Ghana in the first place. We didn't have these artificial boundaries, Ghana, Nigeria, and all that. We had the kingdoms, the Yoruba kingdom, the Ashantis, and all that. So someone could be captured, let's say, in maybe the Yoruba kingdom, but then brought to the coast of Ghana or Benin before they put on ship, taken up. The same way someone could be captured from, let's say, the Ashanti kingdom, but taken to maybe Sierra Leone before put on the ships. So many of the Africans brought here, there were people who were captured within what is now Ghana, but there were some people captured in neighboring countries. Burkina Faso, Togo, were brought here. And many of them, they were prisoners of the wars. Before the Europeans came to our land, the kingdoms, there were wars that happened. Let's say the Ashantis fighting the Gans, and when these wars happened, prisoners of wars were taken, used in our societies as servants. So what the Europeans did was, when they came, they brought the guns, and they were offering the guns to some of these kingdoms. With the guns, as a king, your kingdom or your army becomes more powerful. You get to conquer your enemies. But the Europeans wanted something in exchange. And it was like, what we want is, when you go to the wars, the enemies you capture, the ones you originally used as servants in your community, bring them to us. So many of these Africans were prisoners of the wars that happened between the kingdoms. But there were also people who were kidnapped randomly from their homes. You could be in the home with your family at night, sleeping. Before you know, your house is on fire. You run out.
Yeah.
Once you run out, there are people with guns, machetes. They are captured by force, taken away. And wherever the Africans were captured, they walk to the coast. So you can imagine walking from even Accra to this place, or walking from Kumasi or Tamale or Burkina Faso.
Okay. Were the Europeans capturing Africans or Africans themselves?
Taking.
Yeah.
Okay. When the Europeans first came to our shores, they themselves, they used to raid villages, kidnap people.
Yeah.
But they saw that it was a problem because the Africans were fighting back.
Yeah.
So that is where they started giving the guns to some of the kings and asking for prisoners of the wars in exchange. So for majority of the slave trade that went on, the Europeans were not the ones who go out to capture, but they rather influence the kings with the guns, and then they get the prisoners of wars in exchange. And with the guns also, the wars became more. And where there is wars, people are going to be captured
Yeah.
and brought to the castles. So at the beginning, the Europeans would go out. But later, they found a way to get people by giving out guns to the kings, and then asking that when the wars happen, the people you capture,
Bring them.
bring them. We'll give you more guns, and make you more powerful.
Okay, so Africans, the kings, they were demanding for guns.
Yeah. But those were the times of like kingdoms expansions. You know, many the kingdoms wanted to expand, get bigger.
Yeah.
You know, get more kingdoms under their rule. So the wars were there.
Yeah.
And with the guns, it was a game changer because you go into war with guns. The person you are going to war has bows and arrows, and definitely the person with the guns is stronger.
Stronger, yeah.
So with the guns, you become more stronger. You can get more people under your kingdom. You know, rule more people.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that those days, yeah, the kingdoms all wanted to expand. So with the introduction of the guns, it was making them more powerful. And the thing was, it was like, well, the people you are going to war with, they are not your people, because in those days, people owed their allegiance to their kingdoms or ethnic. So if let's say I'm a Fanti or an Ashanti, that is who I am.
Yeah.
You're African, you are black, but like me, but you belong to this kingdom.
Kingdom.
We probably are enemies. So I don't see you as my brother or my king's man.
Please, if I may ask, what or Africans, according to your explanation, you said it was not like countries like today.
Yeah.
It was kingdoms. So why were they fighting each other?
In terms of all throughout history, you know, there have been wars that have been fought to expand kingdoms and countries and nations.
Yeah.
Even today, I mean, Russia is in Ukraine.
Yes.
You know, fighting and all that.
Yeah.
So all throughout history, among the Europeans, it happened. You know, Hitler and all those people.
Yeah.
So all throughout history, there has been that situation where wars are fought to expand kingdoms. Sometimes, in expanding kingdoms, is to get more resources. Maybe the next kingdom has more gold and more resources. So if we're able to capture them and bring them under us, the resources becomes ours.
Understand? So sad. Very sad.
let's walk closer. And one thing with the British or the Europeans also is that they used to brand the Africans. The Europeans who were here, they were traders. They had companies.
Yeah.
So when they get the Africans, they had these branding irons with their companies' names or emblems at the tops to fire. The branding was done mainly on the arms or the backs, and it was for easy identification. That way, when the ships come, they don't have to look at the faces to see, oh, your ship is in or not. They look at the map, they compare, okay, there's your ship, you go. They compare, oh, your ship is not in, you stay and wait. So they used to brand the Africans. And the male dungeon, so this is where they kept the men. After the branding is done, this is where they keep the men to wait for the ships to come. They had a separate place for women who go there. And the male dungeon, one thing about it is the British, they had Christian missionaries. You know, Christianity in West Africa started with the slave trade. So when the Europeans started the slave trade, that's when the Christian missionaries also started coming to our shores. So these missionaries mostly stayed in the slave castles. They were here to preach Christianity to the Africans. We had our own religion.
Yeah.
The missionaries built churches in the castles because they had to have a place to worship. And the slave traders and all that were also Christians. And somehow the churches they built were always on top of the dungeons or the cells. So where they were keeping the Africans, on top of it was the church. So for this slave castle, this is the male dungeon. The British had an Anglican church. Yeah, the room, yes, this room with the 3 windows was the first Anglican church established by the British. So while they were keeping the Africans down, holding them here for the ships to come, they, the British, worship
At the top.
right at the top. Yeah. We now use the place as a children's life, but it was a church during the slave trade.
I'm not against Christians, so if it's true that Europeans, British brought church to Africa and they kept Africans under here and worship at the top, means we need to go back to our roots.
Yep. But are we going to do that?
Because you can't bring your church to me and maltreat me, killing me.
But
You are killing me down and worship at the top.
sure. But now, for instance, in Ghana, roughly about 80% of the population is Christianity. We are about to build a national cathedral. We are spending millions of dollars. In fact, in Ghana, you see more churches than schools.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
so right now, Christianity, you could say, has become part of basically our daily life. You know, very few people still practice their traditional religion, which our ancestors practiced. You know, and wherever you even acknowledge, you know, they say you are an idol worshiper or juju man, or you know, they have all these names.
Yeah.
That you are going to hell, you the devil worshiper and all that. So, like you said, Christianity is not indigenous to West Africa. It was the Europeans who brought Christianity. We had our own religion. You know, it did not start in West Africa. One thing is Christianity had been to like Ethiopia a long time ago before the Europeans came. But in West Africa, it started like this. And what the Europeans did was to first convert chiefs or the kings. Because once you're able to convert the leader, it's easy to convince the other followers too. So that is what they did. They first converted the leadership, and then the commoners or the subject, the people they rule. So if your king says, okay, the religion now is Christianity, what do you can do? Accept it. But the fact is, this is how the churches started. Are you a Christian?
I'm a Christian.
So, but at the end of the day, you could say that it's all about a personal relationship with God, doing good and all that. Because we still have people today who go to church, they kill, steal, they do all that, but they still, you go them, you find them in the front, leading the prayer squad and all that. But when they come to the house, they do a lot of different things. So the issue or the problem is not religion, but it's people using religion for their own selfish gains. Because the Christianity the Europeans came with, it wasn't to convert or preach Christ or something. It was for a different reason. And it was basically to help with the slave trade. So they came with the Jesus growing up. You can see that the picture of Jesus was a white man.
Yeah.
Blonde, blue eyes. It was a white man. But we all know Jesus was never a white man. But that was a picture we were growing up. So the angels were always white people. Angel Michael, Angel Gabriel, you never heard of Angel Kwame or Angel Obina, or there was never an African angel or name for that. But Satan or the devil the picture was like a black man like you and I.
So me, they convert us to Satan, and why they are genuine.
So exactly. So it's like, Christianity or that they kind of attached kind of this whiteness to it. That everything pure is white, clean is white. Heaven is white. They are wearing white robes and all that. If you go to hell, it's fire and black and everything. So we are black people, we're African. So we kind of were attached to the devil and everything that was wrong. But white, it's just like today. If the wedding, we have white wedding. If it's a naming ceremony, it's white. If it's anything good,
it's white.
You have to put on white. But if it's funeral, dead,
black. The mindset. So you grow up thinking that anything white is genuine, better. Anything black is evil.
This is the male dungeon. This is where they were keeping the men, to wait for the ships. And the dungeon, they divided it into 5 chambers. There's the first chamber. They can keep about 200 men, as many as 200 in this space. In those days, there was no electricity. The 3 vents, that was a source of light in there. The toilet, urine, all were done here in the dungeons. They stayed in it.
They read here,
they defecate
here, they eat here, they drink here.
Inside. They were eating 2 times the food is in the palms, and they stayed for 2 weeks to 3 months waiting for the ships to come and take them away. So many of the Africans died in Europe. And when one died, the body taken out and thrown into the sea. That's how they were treating the Africans in the Philippines. I mean, they say they came to trade, but it was more a case of getting the resources as cheap as possible, and if possible free, and to kind of come, the Europeans who came to West Africa on our shores, they were not many compared to those in Europe.
Yeah.
It was just a few Europeans who were here. So to convince those back home that what they are doing was right, they had to, create the impression that we were an inferior race. So back in Europe, they thought of us as savages, that we were just running around naked. We had no culture, no heritage, we're savages. I mean, we were compared to monkeys and apes and gorillas and all that, So they created that impression that, oh, these people are inferior, we the whites are much superior. We've got more knowledge and more sense and more than them. So there's nothing wrong with, because they are not equal
To them.
So there were not a lot of Europeans who came, but the message those here were taking was that we were savages. So those they believed it. So was that the 1950s, for instance, in Belgium, the Belgians were in Congo. They did a lot of things there. In Belgium, they had children, black children, African children in zoos.
Zoos?
Yeah, people could pay and go and, like we paid to the zoo to go and watch a lion.
Animals?
Yeah, they had kids, children, African boys and girls in cages where people pay and watch them watch. And this was a long time ago. This is just some 50, 60, 70 years ago. It's not so long. So it was just, though we had a superior race. And wherever these Europeans have been, if you go to India and all that, the same thing, it was just the resources. Let's get the resources one way or the other. So in some places, they killed. People were massacred, killed, and all that, When you talk of genocide, the first thing that comes in mind is the Nazi and Hitler and all that, the Holocaust, let me put it that way. That's what the first thing that comes in, the Holocaust and all that. But there was a lot that was done on the African continent by the Europeans, but we don't hear about it. For instance, if you go to Namibia, they have these people there, Herero people. The Germans wiped out more than half the population of these people. They were killed through starvation, through imprisonment, those who were shot, killed. But we as Africans probably don't know much about it. If you go to Kenya, the Mau people, a lot were killed by the British, but you don't hear the media talk about it. But we hear about the Holocaust, the Nazi Germany. So there was a lot that was done by these Europeans in many places, not only in Africa, but in Asia and all that. I mean, today if you go to the Middle East, many of the wars that is going on today, started with the Americans or the Europeans getting there. These countries still not peaceful up to today. Libya had Gaddafi.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, but was it as bad as it is today? No. It wasn't as bad as it is today. So they always portray that white supremacy to them, that they are a superior race, and that they brought civilizations and all that, and it's never true. In Africa, we had our iron industry. We were doing things, all these were destroyed. You ask yourself, where were the Europeans when the pyramids were being built in Egypt? There are pyramids in Sudan, all these built by black people. Where were the Europeans? So to say that, we knew nothing and we did nothing and they brought civilization. What civilization did they bring? And they will say, it's Christianity. No, you can't say Christianity is a civilization. No. There was a university in Timbuktu, for centuries before the Europeans started even coming and all that. So we had our own, we're building our cities and when it came, everything was destroyed. And then they put it down to make it look like we're just running around.
We're nothing.
We're nothing, like we didn't. If you go to like these British European museums, the Benin Kingdom in Nigeria, the sculptures, a lot of them are in these museums in Europe. These bronze sculptures that were done by Africans are in their museums in Europe. They are keeping it there. And people are paying to go and watch it.
Once it belonged to Africa.
The same people you're saying were doing nothing. You've stolen their things their ancestors made. You've stolen their culture and you are advertising that they're making money. The same people you said knew nothing. They were making all these things. So there was a lot they did. And there's still a lot they are doing today, Because after the slave trade, they created a system. Even after we got our independence, they still created a system where we kind of will always take our natural resources to have it processed. So we are rich in resources. But you ask yourself, why are we adding value to these resources? Why is it that if we mine the gold, we have to take it here for it to be turned into gold chains and all that? Why can't we do it here? When we mine this, we have to take it there. Even the normal, in Ghana, we produce cocoa. Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, a lot of cocoa. And we have to take it to Europe for the chocolate and the Milo and all that. And once you take it there, they add value, their price become higher. So they will make more money. Because the last time we were saying there, for instance, the chocolate industry, is worth like $100 billion. And the only money Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire make from is just about $2 billion. And it's like about 70%, 80% of the cocoa are from these two countries. But look at the little money we make out of the 100 billion. We are making just 2 billion, which is just like a small percentage. So the other 98 billion, where is it? It's in Europe and all these places. The companies that are making the chocolate and all that. So we don't add value. We take that thing raw, they buy it cheap, take it there, change it, the price become higher, we buy back. So all these will change,
This is another Ghana.
Yeah, 200. So the last chamber also, kept 200 people during the slave trade. There's a traditional shrine. Yes. A shrine that belongs to the local people in the town. So the shrine, one thing, during the slave trade, it wasn't here. It was built after the British slave. So one will ask, why is it here? It is here because of its connection to the land. So the local history is that before these Europeans came, the ancestors, the Africans in the town, had the shrine on the land. And you know the land is a rocky land.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the African traditional religion, the belief is that the spirits or the deities they live or reside in inanimate things. So it's sometimes the river, so like the river god. Sometimes the tree, or sometimes it's a rock and all that. So the belief was that the rock was the abode, the home of the deity. So the locals used to come, to practice their religion here. But when the Europeans came and occupied this place, they prevented the local people from coming. So the Swedish king, the Dane, the Dutch, the British. The British, they officially left the shores of Ghana in 1957, when we got our independence. So when the British left, that was when the local people sent a request to the government that they want the shrine
back
on the land. They want to come back on the land. But for that to happen, the government would have had to demolish the building. But the government was like, oh, we cannot do that. So let us give you this space.
To start zero.
Yeah, to build a shrine. Okay. So they brought to symbolize the deity. So you can see it over there.
So people do come here.
Yeah, it's an active shrine. So people come here to, pay homage, to ask for favors. There's a priest in charge.
Yeah.
The gentleman in red who just walked out.
Yeah.
He's a priest. So libation is poured. Sometimes animal sacrifices are done. So it is an active shrine for the local.
Wow. So the shrine was working. Why the Europeans treating our ancestors badly, and is there watching?
Okay, yeah. Many people have asked that question. Like, why the gods not stop
The slave trade.
Yes. But one thing, the gods or the spirit, I believe, they don't work in a vacuum. Like, you have to call on them for them to respond. For instance, let's say you need a job, you don't expect maybe what you believe in. Let's say you're Christian, you want a job.
Yeah.
Your pastor will tell you have to pray.
Yeah.
To call on God.
God.
That I need a job, I need before. But you can't just be there expecting that the job will drop from heaven and just like that.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Maybe our ancestors did not really
Call on gods.
gods, and
To assist.
okay,
Because it belongs to our ancestors. I can't ask much questions about it. But I can see some more.
Yeah, these are brought by visitors to the castle, mostly our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. So the African Americans, the Jamaicans, the descendants of the Africans taken away. They normally bring these to remember and pay homage to the ancestors, the Africans who died, and those who survived the forced journey across the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. So all to remember the ancestors. Yes. The floor, originally built with bricks. You can see some bricks.
Yeah.
Yes, but this looks like compressed soil, like soil people have been walking on.
Yeah.
But it is decomposed waste. So the Africans, like I said, while they were here, they stayed the feces, the food waste, which they stayed in with time piled up. covering the bricks and have turned or decayed into what we are standing. So it's not like someone went out and fetched some soil and came and poured it, but it is the waste which over the years have decayed or turned into what we are standing. The feces and the food waste and the vomit and all that. That is it. The blood and all that of the Africans. And one thing, the men in the dungeons were fighting for their freedom, trying to escape.
Yeah.
They were taken out, beaten over here, and then put in the male cell. So let us walk and let's see the male. This over 200 years old. It dates back to the slavery times.
This door?
Yeah. So you could say it was a witness. It did see things. If only it could speak, it would have told us a lot about what happened. The men who were fighting for their freedom, after they are beaten at the courtyard, what the British do is they put them here. And this was a condemned cell. When they put a male African in, no food, no water, and no air, he stays until he dies. So over here, the idea was to kill the African, but they want him to die slowly and painfully, to set an example to the other men in the dungeons. So the freedom fighters, they were killed in here. See, watch your head. So this was the cell. There was no electricity, and the doors at the entrance were 3. So when they put the person here, they close the 3 doors. That is it. You know, he stays until he dies. No food, no water, and no air. So they want him to die very slowly and painfully.
Assuming there are 10 people, so they need to keep them here. They die one after the other.
Okay, they wouldn't put more 10 people. Maximum about 5. The idea was to use a few as kind of scapegoats to set the example. Yeah. So they could put as many as 5 in here. And they keep them here till they all die.
So, okay, assuming one first die, the other one need to wait.
For the others, no. They have soldiers, they come in to check. So if one dies first, he's taken out. The others are alive stay. The next person dies till everyone. So they take them out as and when they die. So they don't keep them here till every, let's say, 5 of them. All 5 of them die. No.
Was to kill them?
Yeah, kill them. This was to kill them. So again, you know, okay. The women, they were put in.
With these female men?
Yes, that's where they keep the women. 200 women here, 200 also there. And they treat the women the same as the men. So the toilet, urine, menstruation, everything, the same. They keep them here for 2 weeks. Some of them were here for 3 months. If a woman gets sick and dies here, the body taken out and thrown into the sea. So the women, they were treated the same And the dungeons were two, so the other dungeon on that side, also to keep 200 of them also were put in there. But we've seen the male punishment cell. This was the female punishment cell, the women who were also fighting for their freedom, resisting rape by the British. They were beaten and locked here. They could put as many as 10 women here. And they starved the woman. The woman could be in for about a week. When she's in, she's given food once a day. She eats from the palms. So they want the woman to go hungry, so that next time she will be submissive, or she will easily give in. So women who resisted rape and fought for their freedom, they were loved. Place is the Palava Hall. This was the slave market, or the auction hall. So when the Africans are brought to the castle by the middlemen, this is where the British do the exchange. And it was their barter trade. The British would use the guns and tobacco, textiles. They give it out to the middlemen. Then the British get it Africa. So from here down there, they brand them and put them in dungeons. So this used to be the slave market, the buying, the selling, the exchange of the Africans between the British and the middlemen. It happened over here. And they named the place the Palava Hall. So this was the slave market.
Exchange human beings. Gun.
Yeah. Guns and tobacco and textile, all these things. This hall, it was used as a courthouse. You know, before the Europeans came to our shores, West Africa, in our communities, the chief's or the king's palace was a court. That was where cases are heard and resolved. But during the colonial days, the British used this hall as a courthouse. So the British law system we use in Ghana today, the my lord, we do at our courts, the way our lawyers work, it all started from here. This was like the first European or British type courts established by the British. Yeah. So the lawyer thing and judges, it all started. The courts thing we do use in Ghana today. This is where it started. This was the first court, or European court, the British established. The British government, the leader of the British, this is where he stayed, or stays alone. So one man was here. You can compare to the dungeons.
Yes. Big difference.
Yeah. And this is even the living room. We had a very good. So 2 rooms just for the government, 1 man. around 1838. There was a governor, his name George McLean.
George McLean.
Yes, McLean became a governor in 1830. And 8 years after he became a governor, his wife came from England to visit. Her name, Letitia Elizabeth London. And when she came, in less than 2 months, she was found dead in here. And when they found her, there was an empty bottle of prussic acid beside the dead body. So the stories were that when she came to visit, she caught the husband with another woman. So many believed she committed suicide, she killed herself, out of the pain of seeing the husband with a black woman. But the thing is, after she died and was buried, the husband McLean continued his affair with a girlfriend and a mistress. They even had a daughter together. So it became suspicious. There were other people were saying that it was the husband McLean who killed the wife and then set it up to look like suicide. The teacher was just 36 years when she died, less than 2 months after coming. And for the husband, George McLean, he stayed and worked for 17 years. He died of malaria in 1847 at the age of 46. He died in the castle. So, one thing, malaria was a very big problem for the white. Many of them died of malaria. Many of them. When they get the malaria, within some few weeks, so the governor's baby.
Very big difference.
Yeah, when you compare to the dungeons where hundreds were packed in those small spaces, and here for one man with all the windows, fresh air, you know. See the forts. The soldier will be here receiving messages from the soldiers at the forts. So in those days, they were waving flags, lighting torches to communicate. So it was just to receive. So whatever information the soldier gets, the first person to hear about it is the governor. Yeah. So just to look through and receive messages from the forts. If they see enemies coming, they might wave a red flag, meaning there's danger. So you have to tell the governor so that the soldiers will be alerted to be on guard. For the governor's guests or visitors are received here before they are taken up. So it's quarters. This was like a wine cellar. This is where they would store the drinks to serve the governor, his guests. There's a water reservoir. They built it to store rainwater, and that was what they were using for the Africans. They were keeping the dungeon. That is what they gave them to drink. But now connected to pipes in the town. These days we store carbon water. Originally built to store rainwater. Two of them. The other one.
For them to drink and
Yeah, but no, not bath. It was just to use it to cook for the Africans. Fetch it for them to drink. So the Africans in the dungeons, they were not allowed to take their bath. Both men and women. So one can stay there for 1 week, 1 month without
not bath.
This is the tunnel, the underground tunnel I talked about. This is part of it. And no one was going in or coming out from here. You know, they'll have a soldier here with a gun, just watching and urging the Africans to walk on, to continue. So starting from behind the shrine, you know, at that last chamber where the shrine is, I talked about the tunnel. Starting from there,
You walk through there.
yeah, to the beach.
Take
So-
your shit.
So a soldier was just here watching and then kind of telling them to move on. the tunnel. Okay, so this is the end of the tunnel. This is the end of it. The tunnel runs this way. We're bringing the Africans in this direction. But this side also closed to symbolize the end of slavery. During the slave trade, there was a door here. Behind it, the beach. So they used to move the Africans out this way.
From here?
Exactly. But as the slave trade was going on, the British blocked the door or the exit. The reason they saw that when the sea waves were rough, or when the tides were high, sea water was a problem. So after closing this, that is when they opened another one because they were still taking people out. The other one they opened is down there. And that is what we call the door of no return. It is still open, so we'll be going out of that door. The door of no return. Originally, it was small and narrow. The Africans had to go down to walk out. Changed into this big one after the British stopped. You know, the name is symbolic. No one came here willingly. These were people brought here by force. And when they were taken out, sent to the US, Jamaica, and all these places, they lost contact with everything. Over there, they lost their freedom, their names, their languages. They were enslaved on the plantation farms. And the Africans taken away never returned home to their motherland, Africa. This is something new they are building. The water was all here. So when they bring the Africans, they walk them down. Over here, they put them into boats, small ones. The ships stay a bit far. The boats take them to the ships before they are taken away. But now we see a lot of fishermen. No cargo.
Those who were taking never came back?
No. They did not return. Their descendants are the Black American, the Jamaicans, and all those Haiti and all these. Their ancestors taken there, they never came. And then we have the door of return. So 1998, a ceremony was done in this castle in the US and then in Jamaica. The bones of two people were taken out from the graves and then brought to Ghana. The bones of an African American is named Samuel Castle, and a Jamaican woman named Madame Crystal. And when the bones were brought to Ghana, they were brought to this castle by sea on the boat. They were taken in, and at the courtyard, a traditional funeral was done for the two. The bones were reburied in a town in Ghana known as Asen Mansu. So after that was done, this was then put there. It's symbolic. The Africans taken away did not return. But the bones that were brought back symbolically broke that barrier. The same door is now a symbolic gateway back to Africa. So to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, to the Black Americans, Jamaicans, all of it, we are saying they can and they should return. That is why it is there, the door.
Africa is home for Africans. As far as you are black, you belong to Africa.
Yeah. Like Kwame Nkrumah said, you know, we are Africans not because we are born in Africa, but because Africa was born in us. You know, so it doesn't matter whether you were born on the African continent, or the US, or the Jamaica. Africa was born in you. Your ancestors were Africans.
This Aquaba means welcome.
So it is there because the door returned. Saying welcome. Philip, he was born in the town around 1741. His father was a middleman father used to bring people to auction to the British. When Philip was just about 11 years old, the British convened the father and they took him to England. In England, he became an Anglican priest. He was the first African to become an Anglican priest. So after becoming the priest, the British brought him back. And during the slave trade, he used to stay here preaching Christianity in the town. So he was able to promote Western education. So there are some schools in the town named after him. The Bukaku Boys and Girls Schools. He died in 1816 at the age of 75. And that's where they buried him. So he's an African, a black man, used by the British to promote and Western education during the slave trade. And the reason why they took him, the British missionaries who came to preach, they faced a lot of problems, but the major problem was the language barrier because they came speaking English and we had our own language. So it was like, let's take somebody who speaks the local language, train him so that he can be able to preach. So that is why they took him. Reverend Philip Papu. His original name was Kweku, which is a Wednesday born. But in England, he was baptized and given the name Philip. And over there, they were basically sound as cow. So that is why the name is Philip. Wife is in the middle grave. Wife who was found there, buried in the middle grave. And the last one there is a British soldier, an army officer. His name is C.B. Whitehead. Right here also, he died in 1812 at the age of 38, but there's no record showing as to who or what caused his death. So these three are white. And there's a black one.
So they've separated black from them. Means in those days, even in the dead.
Yeah. No, still segregation.
Even in the dead, they separate us. Well, Africans need to come home. Africans. Even in the dead, they separate Africans from white, black from white. Let's see. Show them, please. You can go back somewhere and show them.
There's a group, the black man African, and these three are British.
That's it, understand? Even in the dead, this is separate Africans. Very sad.
Even this one, you can see the name written on it. So this is George McLean's grave. And my Tisha was. This is the army officer C.B. Whitehead. They all died. This was yes, 36. 46. This African 75 years. 75 when he died. The cannons, they were here to be used in protecting the castle. You know, the British, they were competing with other Europeans, the French, the Dutch and all that. What they do, they fill the cannons with gunpowder. And then they put one of the cannons on line a match. So when the fire comes in contact with the gunpowder, it explodes. The pressure from the explosion moves the cannonball at the very top. These cannonballs are very heavy, so they were fired to hit enemy ships, break them on impact, create holes in them so that the water gets to the ship and the ship will sink. So they were here to be used to protect the castle, the cannons and the cannons. And they are all original. They were originally on wheels and move them. Yes. Because we have it here. Yes, so they had them all around. Wherever the enemy will come from, they could defend themselves. So, plenty of them all over.
It does not matter who you are, as far as you are black men. You are African. Africa is home for black men. I wonder why this word, all negative names are being given to Africa. But forgetting that all the natural resources in this world is from Africa. Africans, wherever we find ourselves, people call us bad names. People look down on us. People think we are animals. Why? Is it a crime to be a black man? Is it a crime to be African? People don't respect us. They push us away like an animals. It's about time Africans need to wake up. It's about time Africans need to unite. It's about time Africans need to come back to their roots. Africa is home for Africans. Africa is the land of peace. Africa is a land of charity. People have painted Africa with bad image, bad names. Why? Being an African is not a crime. The same blood, but different color. Africa is home for Africans. Africans in the diaspora, you need to unite. We need to come back to unite to raise Africa to the next level. Africa is home. Come back home. Africa is your home. There is peace and love here in Africa. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and leave your comment in the comments. Share the video to all your people.